Good afternoon. Welcome to yet another edition of the European Chats. European Chats are a series of online virtual debates with the European Movement International Network members and activists that are in this way able to engage in a discussion with European citizens about the different issues surrounding back then in 2020 when we started the series issues of the COVID and the recovery and coping with it, but now also discussing other challenges that Europe and world face today, and also to outline maybe the vision of European future from their respective positions. My name is Maja Bobic, and I'm very happy and really delighted that today we will have the opportunity to have this chat next 45 or so minutes with Adem Kumcu, who is president and founder of the United Entrepreneurs Europe. Hello, Adem. Very nice to see you today.
Good morning, Maja from Brussels. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. Also, we have a pleasure to greet Klaus Heeger, who is Secretary General of European Confederation of Independent Trade Unions, or CESI, which we see also on the screen. Good morning, Klaus. Very nice to have you also with us today.
Good morning, Maja. Good morning, Adem. Great to be with you today.
Good morning, Klaus.
To kickstart the discussion, I wanted to ask you, a couple of days ago, we have all celebrated and marked Europe Day, 9th of May, which is the day when we remember the foundation and setting the ground for deeper, more democratic and peaceful European cooperation back in the years. Also, these days, actually, we are also marking 75 years since the Congress in Hague, which I have to mention because this is not only when this idea was promoted across the continent, but also when the European Movement International was founded. So I wanted to ask you, how did your organization celebrate mark, and what activities and what messages maybe you would have on this occasion for the Europeans across the countries? Adem, maybe you start first.
Yes. I think we should never forget the 9th of May. We should never forget it, because we know why the European Union has been initiated at the beginning. If we want peace, prosperity, and human dignity, we should celebrate the European Union, and we should continue to foster it. The very reason of existence of our organization is the ambition to help newcomers, the migrants we call the new Europeans, to adhere to the European values. And these values are very clear to everybody. This is transparency, accountability, democracy, human rights. These are, for me and for our organization, the very important reason of starting such an organization, to welcome newcomers and help them understand the European values and adhere to these values.
Thank you very much, and thank you for introducing also the context of your organization. Klaus, the same question for you, but also to ask you to say a couple of words about CESI to maybe a few people who do not know more about the organization.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maja. So I'm Secretary General of the European Confederation of Independent Trade Unions. It's the French acronym Confédération Européenne des Syndicats Indépendants, which you see behind us. So this organization has been established or founded 33 years ago, and we represent more than 40 national, but also European trade unions or umbrella organizations with altogether almost 6 million members. And what we did, of course, I mean, we had a couple of activities also with our members on the 9th of May, but I was recording a speech, 9th of May speech, and in the past, I must say, I've been always, also when I was younger, quite critical about what the European Union is, and all this, all this shebang which was made about the European Union, all this symbolism. And this year, I think I'm looking back to what happened now, also like in the past 3 or 4 years. I must say I'm amazed by the response of the European Union. I'm amazed by the sense of unity in the difficult moments. Of course, we can criticize, and we should also continue to criticize the European Union, which, by the way, consists of all of us. We have the corruption cases, we have this bureaucratic construct, it's full of flaws and mistakes. And I like quoting Jacques Delors, who said once, no one knows how this mysterious union actually works. But when I look at our work, I have the feeling that this European Union is permeable, so it's accessible, and that if to speak a bit more broadly and generally, it puts compromise over brute force or intimidation, and it establishes cooperation on equal footing as its fundament. And I think in times of war, nothing matters more. And this is somewhere where recently the EU is the antithesis of violence and war, and I can only subscribe to that. But I went also on Saturday to the Berlaymont building, and I must say the building was full. It was full, and this, I must say, made me very happy. So coming back to what I would probably did on the 9th of May is that we will have this European Union for a long time.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned the war, which is, of course, indispensable and an unavoidable topic at this moment. And in Europe and the world, it started more than 1 year ago, hardly hitting Ukraine and Ukrainians, but also having a deep impact on European economy, security, politics, etc. Many civil society organizations have stand up in solidarity with Ukrainian people, and for peace and democratic Ukraine. But I wanted to ask you how this impacted your organization, and what particular activities or messages or policies you have put forward in this respect in response to the war. Adem, back to you.
Yes, we are living in challenging times. We are living in extremely turbulent times. We knew that we are living in a period of time where the pace of change has accelerated, but we were not expecting a war at the borders of the European Union. And to be honest, as the president of a confederation representing migrant entrepreneurs and business professionals, there is not only an economic future, but also a future about peace in the world. And we receive many challenging questions from our members, and we try to answer and give them confidence about the future of the world. But who can give a confidence in these difficult times? That's the difficulty. What I see is what can the European Union do, and what can organizations like UNITEE, CESI, or other civil society organizations do in order to prevent these kinds of conflicts? Is it possible to prevent 100%? Never, but we can support more peace, prosperity, and democracy in the world. And I believe in the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And what we are trying to do at UNITEE is to engage in dialogue, not only with the European Union's institutions, but also with other partners in Brussels in the form of strategic alliance, in order to cooperate to create an ecosystem, a global ecosystem for sustainable development goal. To be honest, this is the ambition for UNITEE for the coming 10 years. And that is possible if we can engage also migrant entrepreneurs to make Europe stronger, to make an inclusive Europe, but also to promote European values, not only within the European countries, but abroad and in the world. These values has to be promoted with and supported with a strong alliance of many different organizations. It can be political organizations, it can be universities, it can be civil society organizations. More than ever before, we need a strategic alliance to prevent any war for the coming generations. We need to protect them by engaging in projects, in impactful projects. This is what I can say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's admirable and ambitious goal, unfortunately, current circumstances, but you're very right. Klaus, also your organization has been impacted most certainly by the war, but what have been your activities and response to it?
Well, I remember exactly on the 24th of February what I was doing. I was in a sports club. I took off and I was running on the machine and thinking what could be the best thing to do. And then I stopped instantly, went back to office, and then we called the our presidium for a strong, how could I say, condemnation of the Russian attack against Ukraine. But I mean, the issue is the condemnation. What is it worth for? And for me, it was worth quite a lot because we also had members in the presidium where I was not so 100% sure that the reactions would be so absolutely anti this Russian aggression against Ukraine. The second step we did then, and you know, I as a teenager, I lived a couple of years in Moscow. So it was the Soviet Union at the time. I think then I spoke quite well Russian, and I had always a certain sympathy, for Russia, for its culture. And so what we did the next was to expose our Russian member. And it was the only right thing to do, because also on the website, they were celebrating this attack. But I must admit, it didn't really make me happy. So since then, also we have established contacts. We have established a support fund for Ukraine, but also contacts with a Ukrainian trade union in the public sector. And here we really hope to deliver, in addition to these sometimes politically meaningful, but de facto not so meaningful political declaration, to really help this Ukrainian trade union also when it comes to support for the reconstruction of Ukraine, when it comes to humanitarian aid, when it comes to training and aid, social dialogue, basically all of that which contributes also to the long-term democratic and social resilience of Ukraine. What we also did is we launched here with the support, we submitted a couple of projects. One is about the importance of public services in times of crisis. The other is the involvement of trade unions in active labor market policies, especially with regards to the Ukrainian refugees. And last, we launched a project with the support of the European Parliament, which is called WEP, which also means at sensitizing citizens and our workers for, let's say, the upcoming European elections. And I just very briefly will tell you a story why, because I was a keynote speaker at one of our trade unions Congress, the Teachers Congress, and the evening before, the former president told me, you know, there are quite some rumors also, and people they're questioning, you know, CESI, the European Union, à quoi ça sert? And I must say, in my speech then also, I got quite emotional because I got, in a certain sense, in a certain way, I got angry. If in this moment of war, people are still not convinced about the benefits, as mentioned just by Adem, also of this European Union, we have to do something about it, we concretely. And this is why now we're going to, 7, 8, 9 member states, and always with the title, à quoi ça sert, highlighting the benefits for citizens, for workers, but also for trade unions to be, let's say, in a confederation such as CESI. Sorry for having been a little bit long.
No, thank you very much. And yes, it's indeed always a question above our heads. Are we doing enough? But if everybody does its part, or his or her part, I believe we are also creating a good fertile ground for EU to continue its support in solidarity with Ukraine. Adem, I wanted to ask you, because your organization, your representing organization who gathers entrepreneurs and business professionals with often necessarily with migrant background. And recently, EU lawmakers have decided to revise the EU migration rules. This measure would endorse that migrants who are seeking refuge in European Union but who are without permission, entered without permission, could speedily be returned and prevent them to travel to other EU member states. How do you think this policy would reflect on the work of your organization?
Well, I am a Dutch citizen with a Turkish background, and in Dutch we used to say, dweilen met de kraan open, mopping with the tap open. Europe, Fortress Europe isn't working. I understand that we should send back people who are illegally on the European ground, but that's not the solution. We cannot stop migration. We will have more people trying to come to Europe because of climate change, because of economic factors, because of geopolitical factors. And we know that when people are in difficulty, they want to go to a Valhalla. And today, Europe is a Valhalla for so many people. And this will be a growing number of people. What should we do in such a situation? What kind of sustainable solutions can we build? Instead of thinking that we can be happy in a world in difficulty by building fortresses isn't our vision of the world. Europe was great in a time when Europe tried to make the world better. We cannot, our problem is not economic or ecologic. Our problem has become egologic, if I may say, because in this difficult time, we need to find solutions in a world which has become a village. We need to cooperate more economically. We need to cooperate more to make the world sustainable ecologically, but also to create this peace. It may seem very naive, it may seem very ambitious, but I think we cannot have short-term solutions for these huge problems. The root causes of migration should be tackled, and these root causes are, as I mentioned before, economic, environmental, and geopolitical, and we need to cooperate together with other countries. And I believe sincerely that if we believe in the sustainable development goals and we create real alliances with impactful projects, then we will maybe prevent some of these huge root causes. Otherwise, it is, again, mopping with the tap open.
Yes, yes, indeed. Klaus, your confederation is working on socially just, if I'm not mistaken, climate change and green transition and employment and gender-friendly digital transition. Recently, just a couple of days ago on Europe Day, European Union announced the European Year of Skills, which should prepare Europe for the green and digital transition. How do you reflect on this, having in mind also your advocacy and other priorities? And what are your plans for the European Year of Skills?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Maja. Sometimes we have to be honest, also a bit doubtful about these years, European years. In this case, of course, if we think of the European Year of Youth last year or this year, the European Years of Skills, it makes, of course, absolute sense. But the big question is always what happens then exactly concretely? I mean, we have done a lot already. I mean, we represent teachers from both, let's say, education, vocational education and training. We have a strong youth section. So we have ever since been quite involved in, let's say, education policies and defining or positioning ourselves in terms of investment, for instance, in the education sector, in terms of improving the working conditions, and in terms of course, something which is very high on the agenda, the valorization of the profession of those teaching. Now, what we will do in this particular year is we will put it on the agenda also of every let's say, sectoral commission meeting we will have in order also to basically have a clear ideas of what the exact skills are needed, what the challenges are needed, and then based on those also elaborate some let's say more general position, because so far when we were speaking from the perspective of the teachers or of the young, we had a more specific approach. I mentioned projects also earlier. Now what we've done from our side is we have established some kind of workers exchange platform. So we are here trying also to basically convey skills to our members, to our, let's say, future trade union leaders. And we had, and I mentioned that earlier, also launched the project on Activate, how to get our members more strongly involved, in the design of active labor market policies. Coming back to what I said, it will be decisive what will happen afterwards. We have clear ideas here that we say there should be in the future also a culture of lifelong learning. There should be more stringent, more improved education to work strategies, etc. We put a strong accent on the strong focus on the quality of vocational education and training. We want, as I said, more investment in the education profession and in the entire education sector. What we are a little bit, when we speak of skills, I had to say we're having controversial discussion, because some people say we need basically to adapt the education curricula to the future needs. I mean, first of all, we should design what are digital skills, what are green skills. But we also, since we have strong, how could I say, more traditional trade unions of teachers, strong reservations in this regard, saying that the young people of the future should not also be simple puppets of some economic needs. We need also for the future here some mature citizens. Well, I think the war in Ukraine and the values mentioned earlier are good proof of that it's not only about having green and digital skills, it's also about having, how could I say, the skills of mature citizens. Very quickly, for the twin transitions, for the green transitions, we know that jobs will be lost. So we as trade unions also will have to adapt also, but also contribute with our policies, with our deeds, with our collective bargaining and social dialogue to create as many sustainable jobs as possible, to save as many sustainable jobs as possible, and to also assure or try to make sure that as many unsustainable jobs as possible are being transformed into sustainable. So I think here's a very strong responsibility also lies on the shoulders of the trade unions. We cannot simply also in the future, let's say, defend the interests of our members. We will also have to look beyond and make sure that basically the sectors or the areas or the countries we work remain competitive. So here I see we must put trade unions at the core of these transitions, because otherwise, if we lose the workers, if we lose the citizens, it will fail.
Yes, indeed. There is very important contribution and responsibility of the trade unions, as you mentioned. Adem, I want to ask you also related to this question, European Year of Skills, or generally matching the skills to the demand in the future green and digital transition. One of the components is to attract skills from the third countries that are needed by the EU. Your organization has a lot of experience in this respect, and what would be your recommendation to do this in a best way for all sides involved?
To be honest, at the beginning of this organization, in the strategic plan, we mentioned smart, social, and sustainable entrepreneurial models as one of our main ambition. But at the same time, we wanted also to improve diaspora mobilization in order to stimulate migrant entrepreneurs and business professionals as bridges between their country of origin and their new home countries. And the world is changing. The world is changing dramatically. And we want also our entrepreneurs and business professionals, our members, to be aware of the changing world, not only to adapt themselves to these changes, but also to become change makers in this sense. And we know that migrant entrepreneurs are creating jobs in Europe, but are also investing in their countries of origin. They are not only transferring economic value added, but also technology transfer, know-how transfer, and even more important, in my view, value transfer. And the values we need for the coming period is indeed smart, social, and sustainable. Smart in the sense of the new digital reality. We can say mixed realities, because we are talking about a physical analog world and now a digital one. And this mixed reality has a huge impact on entrepreneurial models. Europe as a talent magnet in a world where there is a talent war, and where Europe, not only Europe, the world is aging. We need more and more talents, and the best talents. Is the European Union and the European countries, are these countries competitive compared to other part of the world? I don't believe so. The very reason behind this is the fact that we see migrants as a danger instead of an opportunity for the future of Europe. We need to think more in terms of opportunity through diversity, which is a fundament for more innovative and creative and sustainable economic development within Europe and also within the world. How to make the European Union a talent magnet is we should stimulate legal migration. If there is in the US a green card, do we have a blue card in the European Union? To be honest, there are very, very easy way to attract these people here, but you need to promote much better Europe, and you need to fight against this populistic movement, which is damaging the European image everywhere. And we need to stop with this fortress Europe everywhere. We should become the visionary European Union we have been at the beginning. We are losing ground. I think Europe has been hope for so many years. It should become again a hope for many people, talented people, but it's not enough to attract them. We should also, within the European Union, give them room to generate value with their talents, how to include them within the labor market, how to include them within the decision making our decisions making inclusive, participatory. How can we give these newcomers the feeling that they belong to the European Union? I used to say, I'm a European, not in the sense of the blood in my body, but in the European values I am adhering. Again, we should work on branding the European Union, but branding is not enough. We should work in a supportive ecosystem to value these new talents.
Indeed, European as a state of mind. Just to remind our viewers that there was a reminder also in the crayon below a couple of minutes ago that the discussion is streamlined on all EMI social media platforms, and we are happy to hear from you to pose a question or a comment to our today's speakers anywhere on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn, where we are streaming right now. Klaus, I wanted to ask you, some of your organizations members are very active in the security and defense sector, and the war we discussed earlier has put a lot of spotlight the European cooperation in the area of defense. What do you think about this, and what would be your recommendation for the future defense cooperation of the Union?
Well, thank you very much, Maja. I like this question because it's a very broad question, and I'm absolutely not the expert. So I can basically say many things when it comes to security or defense policy. But of course, we represent here personnel, civilian and military personnel of the armed forces. And that is why we have now regularly on a biannual basis established the so-called European Defense Roundtable. Now, if we know that defense is a very sensitive area, we know also that the European Union, I mean, let's be honest, has been striving, I think, for 20 years now to become an effective security actor. And we know that a lot has happened since, of course, the Russian aggression against Ukraine. But we also must establish that until then, I mean, member states have strongly, or too strongly, or many member states neglected their defense commitments and capabilities. Now, all of a sudden, the whole situation has changed. And all of a sudden, everybody notices that in our organization also, the issue of defense was not really high on the priority. And we were saying defense is something, or let's say security is something which is of importance for us all. It is basically only since the 24th of February last year that all our members also are increasingly aware that security and deterrence, we have to be so honest, are simple preconditions for freedom, for the rule of law, for democracy, for our European way of life. And I think all of a sudden this has not become only apparent and visible, of course, for the political stage at highest level, but also within our union. Now, I have a look here, for instance, at a set of demands we would have. Once again, I'm not the military expert here, but I think one very important issue has to be mentioned, that security goes far beyond defense. And I was referring here also to our endeavor to establish, let's say, a structured cooperation here with our Ukrainian partner. I mean, civil society is, trade unions are not bystanders. You know, we will have to think very quickly, or to have an understanding of security, of defense, which is much broader than simply military defense. And this is something, when some of you may know that there has been this strategic compass, which was adopted last year. And I mean, there's hardly or not at all any reference here to trade unions or to civil society. Once again, we speak here about social or societal or rule of law resilience. And I think this is something which has to flow into the minds of the decision makers. What we notice also is when we organize, we have 4 or 5 or 6 European defense roundtables, it is so extremely complex and complicated and opaque to find those people basically who are really responsible for drafting this European Defense Union, for establishing this European Defense Union. What last point maybe, which is of relevance, which was also of relevance for the Economic and Social Committee report on this strategic compass, is I think we cannot, I mean, we don't know what's happening with Trump now. In the future, he may come back, but this strategic autonomy is something where we should stepwise come to it, but we should never give up the pillar of NATO. By the end of the day, NATO is the number one security provider, and this is how it should be. And by strengthening, how could I say, the European defense capabilities, basically one should strengthen the European pillar of NATO, but the strategic autonomy outside of NATO, this is at least from the perspectives of our unions, not really thinkable.
Thank you. Yes, it's a work in progress. Adem, I wanted to go back to another very important event, so to say. Next year, European elections are approaching, and already now the campaigns and the messages are being circulated. And you mentioned some of these things about how the EU should address the causes of migration, and also how you would like to see that migration and migrants are being portrayed. But usually in the pre-election period, it's really one of the most heated debates are revolving around this issue. I wanted to ask you, what would be first your proposal, policy proposal, or the priority that you would like to see being discussed when we speak about migration by the EU candidates and people involved in the process, and also what kind of narratives you would like to dominate when it comes to migration in the pre-election phase.
European elections are for us a very important period of time, because if you want to cooperate with the European Union, you need to be synchronous with the European Union. And what we are going to do within 2 weeks in Spain, we'll have a huge 2-day workshop where we will define what Klaus told the strategic compass for the coming 5 years of European Union. But we already know what will be our concrete proposal to the European Union. One of them will be building resilience and inclusive resilience. We know that the digital gap is a reality. The digitalization of migrant SMEs is not happening at the same speed as the digitalization of other European SMEs. We are losing the game because a very important part of the European economy is not digitalized yet. This is one of it. The second part of it, we know that everybody is now doubting about the economic stability of the European Union. We need some more resilience and economic resilience, but it should be not an economic growth, but a sustainable economic development in our view. And this means that if an economic policy is generating more inequality within the society, this is not the vision of unity. We prefer more economic equality between the people living within the European Union. Economic resilience, economic equality will be two dominant agenda points, but also sustainability. And therefore, it will be a proposition to the European Union to support more these newcomers in making the green transition. Digital transition is important, and it was the ambition before, but even for the coming years, especially inclusive green transition should be on the agenda, and we will focus on these 3 priorities for the coming period. I will not go in detail because we need this discussion in Spain to have our strategic compass. But anyway, as a president, my proposition will be these 3 priorities.
Thank you very much. It's already quite concrete, but looking forward to hear how you will develop this in your workshop. Klaus, I had the pleasure also to hear some of your projects and plans ahead of the European elections yesterday, the European Parliament meeting, because you're also one of the grantees of the European Parliament for citizens' engagement around European elections. And of course, you're also supporting active citizenship of the workers in your member organizations. What would be the policies or the manifesto of CESI ahead of the elections, and specific activities you plan?
Yes, thank you very much, Maja. Indeed, we have we of course have the ongoing planning for each year, but next year will be special because we're having a very particular situation here in Europe and worldwide, and the European elections are coming up. So one of our, and I was referring to it earlier, when I went to this conference as a key speaker in France, when it comes to defending also the idea of à quoi ça sert, what is it good for? Well, it is good for many, many things. So we will, first of all, we will be working on a manifesto also, which I think will have some general approaches altogether when it comes to the future of Europe. Social dialogue and trade union pluralism is, of course, for us of fundamental relevance. I was mentioning that also in reference to the green transition and the digital transition. Then we need investment. I'm not speaking of spendings here, but we need investment in public services, in public services and their staff. I mean, I think Corona has shown us also what insufficient investment in the health sector for health services led to. Then I repeat myself here, ensuring fair in digital and green transitions. Also, maybe to complement what Adem said, maybe we can have that in the discussion. Also, I'm a trade unionist, so per se more complaining type, but I have personal doubts when it comes to the competitiveness also of Europe, when it comes to let's say its strategic dependence on certain states. So when it comes to let's say the dependence on energy intensive industries, when it comes to the dependence of on critical raw materials, etc. So there are many points where I'm asking myself, and as a trade unionist, I'm worried: will we also be able to remain competitive in the future? And finally, also one issue which remains central is fighting precariousness, precarious work, and I think there's a lot to do in terms of legislation. For me, it's relevant, also important to highlight that ever since the Corona started, we have launched many interviews with stakeholders, but also with our members to remain, also to keep the cohesion within the organization. I mean, we're not seeing each other, so that was the best way also to talk to each other regularly and to speak to the stakeholders. I've had many interviews now of members of the European Parliament, also to ask them about what is at stake from their perspective. And I was referring to this Acqua Sacer event. We will have a big event in Palermo at the beginning of next year, also saying what are we actually defending here, and to highlight these important, let's say, benefits of the European Union. We will combine that with a youth event, because I think also the young people are the main addressees of not only of the European Union activities here, but also of our activities at CESI.
Thank you so much. I was inspired by our conversation, so I just need to ask you something very briefly before we wrap up, because we discussed a lot about European values and what it means to be European, and what the contribution and the importance of European integration so far has been. What would be the one word that you would like to pick that would describe positive European achievements that could motivate people to engage in the European election? What would be the thing that you would like to I don't know, start your campaign with, or anything from the perspective of your organization and the scope of work that you're doing, or maybe in general for you as a European?
Now I can say self-confidence. Do never fear. We have so many good things in Europe. We are able in Europe to fight against every kind of crisis. Be self-confident. Look in the future with hope, because this is our only hope, if I may say.
Very nice. I like that. Klaus?
Yeah, Adem is always very good in these things, so I'm trying to find something also quite very smart here. For me, it's Europe stands for compromise, and we have always, I think the European compromise has always been, how could I say, neglected or even vilified or whatever. I read recently a book from Montefiore where he refers to a story where the British Prime Minister instructed his governor in Jerusalem, where I asked him, please stop working if anyone stops complaining, meaning you're fired. If nobody complains anymore, meaning the compromise is something which is beneficial for everybody, but also which can hurt everyone. And maybe to add also something to what Adem said, we live in times of such polarization. You know, every time somebody says something, then everybody is outraged, offended. We have to respond to it. You know, sometimes a little bit more self-confidence and a little bit more serenity, because I think, I don't know who said that once, serenity is the most beautiful expression of self-confidence. And I think in times in which we are living at the moment, that would be nice. If all of us sometimes should just let other people's opinion apply and just take note of them, because we live in strong and democracies where this should be possible. Just relax.
Lovely. I like self-confidence, compromise, serenity. Europe is so many things, but I think you picked up very reflective, so to say, words of what it might be, and that could empower people to engage in the European project, not only to learn about it and know about it. That's it for now, for today's conversation. I would like to thank you very much, Adem and Klaus, for your input and your responses and your comments. It has been very interesting discussion, and I hope to see you. I wish you all the good luck in the future projects and activities, especially around the European elections in 2024, but also beyond. And I wish that we also meet up to discuss maybe some of the achievements you have made with these projects next year. Stay tuned with the European Movement International social media and website to learn about the next European chat discussions, and have a good day.